What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and we've got another Cyber format video, aka September 2005 in the TCG. Uses the GOAT format, limited list, and cards going up to Cybernetic Revolution. This format's been really cool so far. Of course, it is dominated a little bit by the Stein decks that just turbo out Cyber Stein and bring out things like Cyber Twin Dragon or Cyber End Dragon to just end the game on the spot. But there are some other decks that people have been tinkering with, and we added locals for this format last night in the YGO from Zero Discord server, where if you want to join any future locals, definitely head on over there. Also, it's a great place to find games in any of the formats that I've featured on the channel. Definitely head on over there if you're interested. But one of the decks that really shown in that locals was this deck brought by Mildly Upset Gerbil, and this is a Death Frog, Death Croaking deck. So basically the idea is that if you can bring out Death Frog, it can, bring out other Death Frogs from your deck up to the number of tadpoles you have in your graveyard. Tadpole is a very weak water monster, but once it's destroyed by battle, you get 2 more tadpoles to your hand. If you've got discard fodder with things like Abyss Soldier, and you've got Raigeki Breaks, and you've got Phoenix Wind Blast, and you can use those to pitch tadpoles into the graveyard. You can easily get out the Death Frogs using things like Brain Con on an opponent's monster, or potentially Snatch Steal, or even just a Sidra that you special summon out, and then you can easily get out 3 Death Frogs and then activate a Death Croaking to wipe away all cards your opponent controls. So that is pretty cool if you're actually able to pull it off, because you wipe away your opponent's entire board. And also, you've got 3 of these 1900 attack point monsters, so that adds up to 5700 damage total. So that's a lot of damage if you can actually pull it off. So I think this deck is really interesting. It did pretty well in the locals. If you want to see it pop off on stream, definitely check out that, because it was really cool to see. It inspired me to play this list for this video here. So I got some games in it. We'll dive into that. Looking at the other cards in this list, I pretty much went through all the monsters. There are Triple Mother Grizzly as well to get into your tadpoles, or potentially into your Sinister Serpent, which is just reusable discard fodder. You've also got a Sangan, get into your tadpoles or your Serpent, and you've got a Tribe as discard outlets as well. For these spells, there's the Double Brain Con, the Snatch Steal. You don't necessarily want to play 3 Brain Con here, because your opponent isn't always going to be summoning monsters in attack, so it will be dead sometimes. But maybe the deck does want to go up to 3 in the future, just to have more tribute fodder for the Death Frog and also to get more aggressive. It's a potential option there. There's a Liquid Duo, Pot of Greed, and Grace of Charity. Of course, the Trinity is still legal in this format, so it will be played. Triple Death Croaking is unsearchable, so you kind of have to play it at 3 copies, even though it can be a bit of a break if you don't have your Frog combo set up. But when you do manage to pull it out, it is really good. You've also got Heavy Storm and MST to wipe away your opponent's back row. You've got a Premature Burial. Sometimes you need this to bring back a Death Frog to just get the count up to 3 there. We've also got a Snatch Steal, as I mentioned, with the Brain Cons to get tribute fodder. For the traps, we got Call the Haunted to bring back a Death Frog, or just another monster from our graveyard to get more aggressive. We've got the Mirror Force to wipe away our opponent's aggression. The discard traps that I mentioned here can be very good at getting the tadpoles in grave and setting up your big Death Frog plays. You got a Ring of Destruction to deal a bit of extra damage and pop an opponent's monster. A Torrential Tribute to wipe away their entire board, and 3 Solemn Judgments. Now, in playing this deck and testing this deck, I'm not the biggest fan of Solemn Judgment here. I get why it's in here, because if you're trying to stop a Stein play, if you really need to do something to stop it, then Judgment will stop it. But oftentimes people aren't doing Stein plays and do a set of full back row. So a lot of the time you're just going to be trunating, or not trunating, but solemning a trunade or something like that. And that kind of feels bad to solemn, especially if you don't have back row that, interacts with your opponent's stuff in other ways. So it's a bit awkward. And I probably would replace it with something else in the future, maybe with Threatening Roars if you're afraid of the OTKs or things like that. That could be a bit better. Yeah, I found this card to be the one that I sided out most often in these games, and oftentimes, I sided in for something like a Triple Trap Dust Shoot if we know we're going first, or Triple Metamorphosis if I know we're going second. That may seem weird, why would you bring in Metamorphosis? But the reason for bringing this in is that if we're able to stick a Cyber Dragon on field and meta that into a Dark Balter, then Dark Balter shuts down a lot of what the Stein deck does, because it shuts down Last Will. It doesn't necessarily shut down, your opponent's Monarchs and things like that, but it shuts down things like BrainCon, it shuts down things like Soul Exchange, although Soul Exchange wouldn't really be used in an OTK, but it shuts down a lot of powerful spells. Now, it can be beaten over by Sidra, but either way, you're still surviving a turn with it. So, it is sort of the anti-Stein tech that you can go for there. Also, the more often thing that you're doing is you're treating off a Tadpole or just a Serpent to go into a Thousand-Eyed Restrict, which also shuts down your opponent's Stein plays. So I do think that meta is a decent option here for this deck if you're going second, just signing out the Judgments for the metas. But, you know, it definitely does depend. And it didn't really come up in the games that I played, but I do think it is kind of an interesting strategy. So I'm curious to see if more people will experiment with that in the future, maybe in a more dedicated goat-controlled deck. But for the rest of the side deck, there's triple Dust Tornado against more back row focused decks, triple Scapegoat against more aggressive decks. This can also pair with the Metamorphosis, so this could be good to bring in as well if you want to go for that. Exiled Force as well to pop your opponent's stuff, ADD Warrior Lady 2 to banish that, and also a Breaker against more back row heavy decks. For the Fusion deck, it's pretty much the standard Fusion deck that you see in this format, although Fusion decks are unlimited at this time, so you can proxy in a Fusion monster that's not here if you do need it. But we got Cyber End, Cyber Twin, Dark Balter, Darkly the Dragon Knight, Dark Fairy Dragon, and Dragoness for weird, Metamorphosis levels. We've got Fiend Skull Dragon, we got Gatling Dragon, we got King Dragoon, Master of Oz, Ojama King, Reaper on the Nightmare, Ryu Senshi, Lost Warrior for Another Planet, and Thousand Eyes Restrict. And yeah, that'll do it for the Fusion deck. You probably won't be going to this most games, but if you do take control of like a Cyberstein or something, it is good to have this filled out. So that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into some games and see if we can do this deck justice. Okay, first game we got against Rayo Drago, free from guests on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive into the game, and we will indeed win the Rock, Paper, Scissors, so that's pretty good for us. And we are going to go first indeed, because you generally want to go first, set up Disruption if they've got a Stein play or something like that. Or if you got a hand rip, that's pretty good too. So we draw a duo here. We're going to go for that duo. Rip apart their hand a little bit. Tear out a TT and a Demok. Okay, that is a bit scary, because if they are able to revive that with like Premature Burial or something, then, they've got a powerful monster. We're just going to set a Serpent, set a Heavy. This could be a bit rough, because if they do have the pre-mat, then they bring this thing back, attack over Serpent, banish it, so that's kind of awkward. But we do have Brain Control. We've got Cyber Dragon to make a big aggressive play next turn, so I don't really think it's the worst thing in the world if they do that, because I feel like we might be able to even win the game from that position. So we are going to go into their turn, and they're going to go for a Graceful. Oh, that is rough. So they're going to draw 3. They're going to pitch 2, pitching a Blowback Dragon and a Megamorph. So this seems like it's a bit of a more all-in Cyberstein deck than something like Steinarch, for instance. And it looks like they don't have Dust Shoot, so we feel pretty good about that. We're going to go for a Heavy Storm here, tribute over our Serpent, and just attack in, because we know that they're on a more aggressive build, so we want to prevent them from getting out like a Cyberstein, or we want to at least drop their life points low enough that they can't do a Cyberstein activation. They're just going to pass back to us, so I feel very good about that. We're going to add that Serpent back to hand, and then bring out a Mother Grizzly attack in here for 3,500 and drop them down well below Stein range. So they can't really win from this position, but, we'll see what we do here. They're going to True Nade there and add that back to our hand. So they bring out a Fusilier, Monster Gated away. They hit a Stein, which is now dead at this point, which is part of why I'm not the biggest fan of Steingate builds. I will be showing one off on the channel pretty soon, but I don't really like it too much, because it feels like a much worse version of Reading Gate Turbo and Steinarch, because you're putting things in the hands of fate to an extent, and if you do drop below the 5,000, Steinarch can still play on, just not playing the Stein stuff. But with Reading Gate Turbo, you will be hitting Steins some amount of the game, so it's a bit awkward. So that's just my take on it. I'm gonna be featuring it in a video devoted to it later on the channel. But we're going to just bring out a Grizzly off that Grizzly, and then we're going to go for a Brain Con here, grabbing that Cyber Dragon. They reveal that they just had a limit removal, so that's going to be the end of the game. So we're going to dive in to the next game and see if we can, keep the good stuff going. We didn't really get to play any of the Death Frog or Tadpole stuff that game, unfortunately, but hopefully we can get into it this game. So our opponent's going to open. They're going to start with a Fusilier and a set, and they're going to pass back to us. That goes down to 14 because it was just normal summon normally. And I have the read that set is a limit removal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out the Cyber Dragon, and then I'm going to bring out the Grizzly. I figure I'll attack the Grizzly into the Fusilier, and then when they limit removal to protect it, I still get a monster out, and that Fusilier would be popped in the end phase. So I feel fine about this. Unfortunately, the TT, so I had the misread there. And so we're just going to set a TT and a Raigeki Break, pass back to them. A bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. They're going to set 2 pass back to us. We draw a Mirror Force. We're just going to bring out Tribe, run it out, try and attack in here. And they go for a Scapegoat. So it's going to be a bit unfortunate, but we can clear all those in main 2. And I will indeed do that. I figured I don't want to give them Monster Gate fodder, so I'm just going to clear it. I pitched the Snatch Steal instead of the Mirror Force. I think I could have pitched the Mirror Force instead, because Snatch Steal could potentially take their thing and, attack in. I think Snatch Steal probably is the better option, but at the same time, they do clear through this back row. We want the Mirror Force online to protect ourselves for a big OTK push. So I feel honestly it was probably better just keeping the Mirror Force, but it's tough to say. They go for a True Nade here, and we do just go for a break on that other back row, And unfortunately, it's a Call the Haunted, so not really, well, I mean, I guess it is pretty useful because they can bring out Fusilier. But yeah, we lose our Mirror Force there, which is kind of rough. They go for a Minecon on the Tribe, and they'll use Tribe's effect to pop itself. So they're going to send a Trunade there. We draw Sidra, which isn't the best here. We're going to set a TT pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Stein, and they're going to use the effect. Go for a, they're thinking about this, they're going to bring out a Cyber Twin, and we do have the TT here because while we can attack over the Cyber Stein next turn with Cyber Dragon, that didn't kill them, and will take too much damage. They'll still have a Cyber Twin, so we will lose to that. So we go for the TT there, pop their entire board. They banish a Light and a Dark to bring out the BLS here, and now we're in a really, really tough spot. So yeah, it's kind of rough. Maybe if I'd saved the Raigeki break for later, it would have been a bit better, but now we're in a tough spot. We can't get rid of that BLS. Summoning the Sidra does nothing here, so no point to summoning it now. They'll pass back to us again. We draw a Croaking, and unfortunately, that'll just be the end of the game. Nothing we can do there. So I think if I had played the Raigeki break a little bit differently, not just shotgunned it on the Trunade, maybe things would have turned out better. But I figured if they were going for Trunade, they had a big play. I wanted to give them the least access to things as possible. So, you know, maybe a misplay on my part, but we'll have to see what happens in this game here. So we're going into the game in 3, and let's see what happens. This is a, well, it's got Duo plus Dust Shoot, so I can't really complain too much about this hand. So we rip apart their hand a bit. We hit a Sidra, they pitch a Jinzo. That's a Light and Dark setup right away, so that's kind of rough, but we do have the Dust Shoot to send back a Chaos Monster if they do have it. So we're going to flip that Dust Shoot, see that they've got the BLS, the Megamorph, the Scapegoat, and a Call. So Call's going to be a bit scary because they can call back the Jinzo later. That's going to be pretty good for them. And now they've got the Scapegoat, the Call, and the Megamorph there. So they're going to set 2 pass back to us. We draw an MST, so that'll be pretty good for the Raigeki, or not the Raigeki, the Call. But we can't necessarily set the Raigeki break and the MST this turn, because if we set both and they go for Jinzo in the end phase here, then, you know, we want to save the MST in hand to deal with that, because then that'll shut off our powerful traps in the back row here. Once Jinzo's hit field, the Call will basically get disconnected from it, because, you know, Jinzo negates the effect. So, you know, if we MST the Call, the Jinzo will not go to grave at that point. So I felt like I had to hold the MST. They're going to pass back to us. And I could have potentially set the MST here because we do have the Raigeki break online. So if they do go for the Call, then we can, you know, go for the MST. But I figured I want to save the MST for them going for, like, calling the end phase. But realistically, they wouldn't do that unless I set something else. So I think that this was a misplay on my part. I should have set the MST here, just in case they wanted to call the Jinzo. That way I don't have to pitch a card from hand with Raigeki break. But they go for the reasoning here. I call 8 because I feel like DMOC is a pretty rough thing for them to hit. If they, like, bring out a Cyber Stein, we've got Ring to kill them or get them very, very low, at least. And so I feel pretty fine about that. They go for the Call now, and we will go for the Raigeki break and pitch the Death Croaking, because unfortunately Death Croaking is a bit dead at this point. We do play 2 more in our deck, so, you know, hopefully that can come up, but they're just going to attack in. 428, we will ring that just to prevent that from getting out of hand. We could have also kept it on field because we got Snatch, but we know they've got Scapegoat in the back row as well. And this is another reason why, like, again, you know, it would have potentially been better to set the MST as well, because since we know they have Scapegoat, what we could have done is we could have taken the 28 here, and then we could have MST'd the Scapegoat in the end phase. They wouldn't have been able to activate it here because they'd summoned already this turn, then gone for Snaps on Fusilier and gotten in some damage. So that might have been the better choice. All things considered, we also do have this Death Frog here, so that would have gone pretty hard with the Snatch Deal. But yeah, it's just kind of rough as is. We don't have any Tadpoles in grave, though, so the Death Frog isn't really as good as it could be otherwise. But we're just going to keep passing back because we've got no monsters in grave to bring back off pre-mat, and we just got 2 monsters that can't be summoned without other cards on field. They're going to go for a card destruction here, pitching 4 good ones, but we get to draw 4 more cards, so hopefully that works out for us. We will draw into Double Trap Death Shoot, which are kind of dead here, a Grizzly and a Tribe. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw a Death Frog here. We debate about going for the Grizzly or the Tribe. I decided to just blind MST one of their sets, trying to hit like a Scapegoat or something. We hit a Ring, which is also pretty good. We'll bring out the Tribe now, and I'm trying to attack in here because if they've got Scapegoat, this does deal with that. So I figure that it's better just to do this, deprive them of Monster Gate fuel, and unfortunately they do have Scapegoat there. So we won't be able to get in for damage this turn, but we will be able to clear away their entire things. We'll pitch a Dust Shoot, which is dead. We'll set the other Dust Shoot as a bluff, pass back to them. And they're going to go for a Trunade here, bounce back that Dust Shoot. And then, unfortunately, they're going to go for a Cyber Stein, dropping down to 200, but they'll be able to bring out this Cyber Twin, and that will indeed be lethal because 1,200 plus 2,800, 4,000 plus 700 is 4,700. So, unfortunately, we do indeed lose this one, even though I think we were in a pretty decent spot, but we didn't get anywhere near close to actually getting the combo online. If I brought out the Grizzly instead, they wouldn't necessarily been able to do this. So maybe what I should have done is brought out Grizzly, attacked in. If they had Scapegoat, not attacked into any of their tokens, and save that for next turn, because then a Cyberstein off the top wouldn't kill us here, because this does indeed kill us. And they just had a Mirror Force in hand, so realistically it wouldn't have mattered too much anyways, I don't think, because once we go for the Tribe and the Grizzly on the following turn and attack in, then the Mirror Force kills us. But I think it might have been the better play overall. I just don't want them to go into a Monster Gate, but they've used up 2 Monster Gates already, so it's not the most likely thing that they do that. So yeah, maybe it was correct to bring out the Grizzly, because then we wouldn't be dead here. We'd take 28 plus, not 7, because we wouldn't be, the Cyberstein wouldn't be able to attack over it, and then we would have been able to attack over the Cyberstein for game potentially next turn. And if not, we could have popped their machines with the Tribe. So yeah, I think this game could have been winnable if I had played it a little bit differently, but maybe that's just too much hindsight talking. It's very tough in this format to know what to play around, given that OTKs can come out of nowhere. But still very cool stuff with this deck. I mean, it did win game 1, so hopefully we can keep that going, and hopefully we can win a whole match with it, and maybe even pull off the Death Frog combo. So let's dive into the next game now. Okay, we got another game here against Kesha, YGO official, another frequent guest on the channel. We're going to dive in and hopefully pull off the frog combo. They will be going first here, unfortunately. But we do have some Sidras. We got Croaking, we got Charity. Okay, this is a really, really good start for us. They're going to just set one and pass. We feel very good about that. We're going to go for Graceful here, draw 3. We don't have like Serpent or anything yet, but we want to dig into ways to set up our combo, because that's a big OTK push. Unfortunately, we don't really draw anything good here. We just set we send a Heavy and a Cyber Dragon. I feel like MST is the more valuable card, just as a reactive spell or trap pop. We bring out this Cyber Dragon, summon out this Grizzly, attack into the set. It is a Decoichi. Okay, that's a bit interesting. So they might be on a bit of a slower deck since they're playing the Decoichi. We're going to set an MST pass back to them, and they're going to bring out a Cyberstein. So actually, they're on a very much not slow deck at all. They're going to Cyberstein here, and they're going to bring out a Cyber Twin. And that's fine by us. They're going to go for Snatch on the Sidra. We're going to MST now. I think I maybe should have saved the MST. Because realistically, like, you know, realistically, I can save it for when they attack him with Sidra, or when they, clear the Grizzly and then try and attack him with other stuff, because, they've already normal summoned, so they're not going to, like, tribute summon over the Sidra. They might have Gate, might have Monster Gate, but, like, if they're playing Decoichis, then they probably are not on a Stein Gate version of the deck. They're probably just on a regular Stein deck and, playing things like Decoichi to draw into things like that. So I feel like there isn't much risk of giving them the Sidra. Maybe the risk is like if they've got meta, right? If they get Metamorphosis, they tribute off the Sidra for like a Balter, then that's really bad, because then they attack over the Grizzly, and then they get in for, well, that's not quite lethal, is it? That's 6 plus 56, so 62 plus 7. That's 6,900. But if they had Limiter, I guess that would be bad for us too. So yeah, I think doing the MST on the Snatch is probably the best thing here, because Limiter is really bad for us. But Limiter might lose the game either way if they go just 5,600 into the Grizzly, which is 4,200 against me. And then I can't bring out anything off the Grizzly, so they attack into the Cyber Dragon. And then, yeah, so it wouldn't matter there anyways. So Limiter is not something that I need to play around there, because I lose that no matter what. But it looks like they're just going to attack in here. And yeah, I think it was still probably fine to go for the MST on the Snatch. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think of that play. I think it was fine. I think it was probably the better move, but we'll see what happens. We go for a pre-mat here. We're getting really aggressive, because I think that I can just probably end out this game unless they've got Mirror Force. So we're going to go for the, pre-mat on the Sidra, go for Brain Con on the Cyber Twin, and then we're going to attack in. I'm not playing around Mirror Force, but what I am playing around is multiple ways to stop our stuff. I figure, okay, if they don't have Mirror Force, they might have like multiple Sakus, multiple Rikeki Breaks, or something like that. And I want to make sure that I can attack over that Stein, deal a bit of damage, drop them down even lower. So I figure it's fine to leave all of these in attack. I haven't normal summoner set yet, so I can just set the Sangan as the follow-up play, which is a bit awkward for them here. So I feel pretty fine about this. Unfortunately, they do indeed have the Mirror Force to wipe away the entire board. Maybe I should just switch the Grizzly to defense, because, like, realistically, if they do have Mirror Force, like, they're not winning through that Grizzly unless they've got, like, Zaborg. But I don't know. It's a bit tricky. I just set the Sangan, pass back to them, and I play into a Nox, so they're on Nox. That is very good to know. Decks go back and forth on playing the Nox or not, so, maybe it was a bit greedy to set the Sangan. Maybe I should have just summoned it, but I don't know. I bring out a Grizzly, they flip TT, pass back to them. They set another, pass back to us. We draw a Tadpole here. Tadpole isn't really going to be the best. We just set it because they've used up one Nox, so what are the odds they have another? And they're going to pass back to us. We draw a Pot, which is really good. We will go for Pot there, drawing 2. We draw an Abyss Soldier, so we're just bringing that out, trying to attack in for 18, close out the game. They do have a Scapegoat here. So that, to me, signals that they might be on Metamorphosis as well, in which case I'm kind of happy that I did not let them take the Sidra. They're just going to pass back to me. Now, Duo is live here. I have to debate about whether I want to go for it or not. I choose not to. I choose just to attack in because they didn't do anything with that hand last turn. I don't necessarily want to pay 1,000 and, put it in gray for them this turn. But they're going to go for pot here, draw 2. And now they're going to think about this a bit. They're going to go for Raigeki Break on our Tadpole set there. They're going to go for Premat to bring back the Sidra, which is kind of rough. So that will indeed go through, and they'll attack into our Abyss Soldier there. So yeah, it's kind of rough. We kind of wanted that Abyss Soldier. We will get back the Serpent in standby, so that's pretty decent. And we drew another Tadpole, so what we can do here is we can set the Tadpole and be fine with that. We go for a Duo here, though, because now I feel like they're in an aggressive point, so I don't want to give them more tools to just kill us here out of nowhere. I want to keep them down pretty low in card advantage and stuff like that, so that way, I can get the resource from Tadpole. I can hopefully draw into things that can get me out of this over a couple turns. So I go for the Duo there. I just set the Croaking as a bluff, and I set the Tadpole pass back to them. They're going to attack into the Tadpole, and that will go through. So I add another Tadpole from deck to hand here, which is very cool. We finally get to do the resource loop that the deck is known for. They set another pass back to us. We draw Solemn, so we're going to set that along with the Serpent here, pass back to them, and they're going to go for knock on our Serpent here. Now, we could potentially not Solemn this, but I think either way, we're probably in a really bad spot. I mean, that set, if it's like Magician of Faith, we'll get back something either way too. But if we ever Solemn and we've got this open board, then we just lose no matter what. So, yeah, I think about this a bit. I think I just go for the Solemn. I think maybe this was a mistake, but realistically, I wasn't getting out of this game no matter what because they did have the DD Warrior Lady there. And so that will just be the end of the game. So I think no matter what, they knew it was a Serpent or a Tadpole because, those were the only 2 cards left in my hand. And so whatever they had set probably could eat over the Serpent. So even if I Solemned the knock, then we were going to lose that either way. But if they knocked the Serpent and then flipped up the Warrior Lady, then Solemning that is obviously not the best. And we don't have CT, so maybe they would have played it a bit safe and just attacked them with the Sidra as opposed to the Warrior Lady as well. So maybe I should have saved the Solemn, but unfortunately it did not work out for us there. So they are just going to go into game 2 here. And again, because we're going first, I bring in the Death Shoots instead of the Judgments. Judgment is, again, kind of a weird spot, or a weird card, I think, in a deck, just to stop the Cyber Dragon Menace here, Cyber Stein Menace. It's a bit awkward. I don't like it as much as other stops to that strategy, so yeah, but I go for the Duo. I set the Tadpole here, set the Snatch, pass back to them. I figured setting the Tadpole here is fine. If they've got knock, they've got knock, but this is the earliest in the game for them, so they're the least likely to have knock at this point, and whenever I commit the Tadpole to field, I'm probably going to be setting it either way. Of course, I do have this Abyss Soldier to convert the Tadpole in hand into things, but I really want to get those other 2 Tadpoles to hand, so that way I have more things to pitch for Abyss Soldier. So maybe this was a bit too greedy, but I think it's a fine play. What else am I going to do going first here? So they're going to knock our set, and unfortunately, yeah, they did have it. So that Tadpole is 1 Tadpole, not engraved. They're going to set another pass back to us. We do have Abyss Soldier here, which is kind of nice. We special summon out the Sidra of our own, bring out the Abyss Soldier, pitch the Mother Grizzly from hand to bounce their set, go for the Snatch Steal here, and I go for this super aggressive play because I should have game in basically next turn, right? Because we know one of their monsters in hand is a monster that they can set here. We don't know what the other card is, but Abyss Soldier can bounce back one of those. I just bounce back the the more threatening card. I don't think they're playing Cyber Dragon or something like that. So I just bounce back the back row potentially. And then hopefully I can go for a lethal push here because they are very, very low life now. They will gain 1,000 from the Snatch, but I feel pretty good about this. They go for a Snatch of their own. They attack over our Abyss Soldier here. That is unfortunate. We do have another Abyss Soldier in hand if we draw another Water Monster here, but they're just going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a Graceful, which is really nice. We go for the Graceful there, draw into Break, Frog, and Croaking. It's a bit awkward because Croaking doesn't get us anything here. We don't have a Tadpole and Grave either, so we just pitch the Raigeki Break and we pitch a Croaking, so that way we have a Water Monster in hand. And we are going to pitch the Death Frog, bouncing back our Sidra, attacking in for hopefully lethal, but unfortunately they do have Raigeki Break there to pop our Snatch, and now we can't deal with that Sidra too easily. We do have a Sidra in hand to crash if we want to, but they'll attack into the Abyss Soldier, deal 3, pass back to us. We draw a Trap Death Shoot, pretty dead here, but we kind of have to play it because we were going first and so good against Cyber Stein TK decks. But we'll crash into their monster, set the Death Shoot, pass back to them, and they are going to banish the Light in the Dark, go for BLS here. BLS going to beat us down a bit. This is a 2-turn clock. We need to draw something here to deal with that. And we draw a Heavy Storm, which will not do it. Damn, that is unfortunate. I think we played this, well, maybe, again, the Tadpole set maybe was not the best. But, I feel like I don't know. It's just so tough because like with Tadpole, you can't normal summon it because like it's got 0 attack. So if they do OTK you, they just easily OTK you through a Tadpole. But if you set it and they're playing things like Knock, then it's like really bad to get that knocked. You've just lost a turn. And just so unfortunate. And even if it is destroyed by battle, it's not like the best upside. Just getting 2 more resources in hand can be good, but like, yeah, it's just very tough. But this wasn't the only game we played against Kesha. Let's dive into the next one now. Okay, we got our last game here for the Frog deck on this channel. Again, I don't think this is necessarily the final build of the Frog deck. And of course, we have seen this deck pop off, even though it hadn't popped off lately in the video. But we saw it pop off in the local, so definitely check out that local stream if you want to see this deck do really well. But our opponent's going to go for a Graceful there, draw 3, pitch 2, set 2, pass back to us with a pot as well. So that is very unfortunate. What do we have? We have Tadpole, Desk Frog, Desk Croaking, Braincon, Call, and Snatch. So honestly, that's not a bad set of cards there. We set the Tadpole, set the Call, set the Snatch, pass back to them. I do this because I want to bluff like, oh, I have something here that can stop an OTK. Because otherwise, why would I summon out a Tadpole, right? And also, I want to play around the Knock because with the Tadpole online, we are very close to actually setting up a potential Desk Croaking play. And I think that's really cool. So I go for the Tadpole. They go for a Call in the end phase here to bring back that Graceful Charity off the DMOC. And that is really unfortunate for us. Oh my goodness. They go for the Graceful, draw 3, pitch 2, and then they're going to go for a meta, triggering off that DMOC for a Cyber Twin here. And now they'll be able to get in for a ton of damage. They're going to go for Heavy Storm as well, clearing the board, going for Limiter, and that will just be the end of the game. So yeah, that is, I mean, I don't know. I don't think we really had a way to stop that. I mean, I guess, like, what's the level on, like, Cyber End? Oh, I guess we can't see it here, but Cyber End, I don't think it's level 8. I think it's level 10, so they wouldn't be able to bring out that if we had set that. Did they have a Knock in hand? They did not have a Knock in hand, too, so maybe we should have set the Tadpole. But again, like, I feel like it was a fine play just to, like, bluff there. But, like, we saw in the previous games that, like, when you set Tadpole, it gets knocked. When you leave it in attack, we get OTK'd. So there's really no, like, good way to play the Tadpole, unfortunately, which really stinks. It's just so rough. That is the case, but that will be how it plays out in some games. Luckily, we have a really good hand here, double Dust Shoot in the opener, so we're just going to set double Dust Shoot and a Raigeki Break, pass back to our opponent. They draw for turn. In standby, we will go for a Dust Shoot here. They've only got 1 monster with the Tsukiyomi, so it seems like they're playing a Goat Control style deck with the limit removals as well. But yeah, they've got the Graceful as well, which would normally be really bad for us if we only had 1 Dust Shoot, but we've got another Dust Shoot. So that means that they can go for the Graceful here, and then we can fire the other Dust Shoot on Resolution. And they choose to do that before going for the Heavy, I think, in order to try and bait out like a Solemn or something like that, potentially. But now we do have the Dust Shoot, so they get a little bit punished for that play. Again, they only had 1 monster in hand there, so now they're just left with a Meta, Heavy, Goat, and Meta. So doesn't really do much for them here. Now, the Goat is a little bit annoying because they're able to bring out like some tokens and things, but I don't necessarily want to pitch anything in hand here, honestly. So I just let it set. I figure I'll save the break for later when they've summoned already that turn. But we get immediately punished for our play by drawing the pre-mat. So if we had gone for break in the end phase there, brought back Sidra, then that would have been pretty good. I mean, I guess they could just heavy our pre-mat, which would then shut off the Sidra, so that's not the best, but yeah, right now we're just not drawing ways to do things. We draw another Death Frog, so that's pretty cool. All we need is 1 Tadpole engraved now, and then what we can do is we can pitch one of the frogs to the break, pre-mat it back, and bring out the other frog. And then we've got our Croaking play set up. And also a nice thing about Croaking is if we activate Croaking, they change Scapegoat, then the Croaking will wipe out all these Scapegoat tokens. So that's kind of a cool sort of counter against this deck. We draw another Dust Shoot, so we're just going to set that, pass back to them, and we go for the other Dust Shoot here just to see a peek of what they're bricking on. And we see that they've got a Serpent, a Limiter, Meta, Snatch, Heavy, Knock, and Meta. So that's pretty good information to know about. Getting rid of that Serpent's also nice because it shuts off their metas. And they're just going to pass back to us again. We draw an Abyss Soldier, so we can finally do something here if we want to. We bring out the Abyss Soldier, attack indirectly. They do have the Goat, so they're just going to go for that, and that is perfectly fine. If I want to play around meta here, what I could do is I actually could go Abyss Soldier, discard a Death Frog, bounce the Abyss Soldier, because we know that they've got 2 metas. Yeah, they've got 2 metas. They've got a Snatch. So either way, this would protect the Abyss Soldier. It does get a Frog in graveyard as well. And then I can go for Sidra next turn to eliminate more of their tokens. So actually, that might be the move. That might be the move, honestly. I just didn't see it here. But yeah, I think that would have made a lot of sense. I think that would have been the better play here rather than just leaving the Abyss Soldier on field. But again, I want to set up the sort of pitch a Death Frog to Raigeki Break and then, do cool stuff with that. But I could have pitched the Death Frog to the Abyss Soldier instead. So Yeah, I'm going to Raigeki break one of their tokens here. They've got a meta, though, so they'll be able to go into a Thousand Eyes, bring out the Thousand Eyes, suck up our Abyss Soldier attack in for 18, and pass back to us. So that's a pretty good board. Now, the optimal move here is to special summon out Sidra, and then bring con the Thousand Eyes, tribute out a Death Frog, and just attack over their token, attack directly for 21. That is the optimal move. But it does shut down our Death Croaking play. Because what we want to do is we want to set up a situation where we've got a Tadpole in grave, we tribute out a Death Frog, bring out another Death Frog, and then we pre-map back the other Death Frog. So, in order to preserve the hope of keeping that combo online, I'm going to make a really, really suspect play here. And it's a play that probably loses me the game. Although, to be fair, I think we would have probably lost this game anyways. But we bring out a Sidra, we attack over their token, and now we set the ring, pass back to them. So, they are going to go into the Snatch Steal on the Sidra, bring out a Sangan as well. And they do have meta for the Sidra, so maybe I should actually ring the Sidra. That might be the move here, because after they bring out Balter, that makes things really awkward for me. But I figure after they bring out Balter, we can pre-map back the Sidra attack over the Balter and be okay with that. But, maybe there's just too much damage to take. So, yeah, but they used up their meta there, so at least 2 metas are gone. We draw heavy, which is not really going to be that good for us. We know about their heavy, too, so that makes things even more awkward for us. We bring out this Cyber Dragon, though, and we just poke over their Balter. We're not dead yet, but we're in a really, really bad spot. They will draw for turn. They switch the Sangan and Fence, and they're going to set one pass back to us. So we feel okay about that, actually. We draw a Tribe, which we could bring out. We're going to think about whether we want to actually bring out that Tribe, go in here, and let them get a search off Sangan for potentially, like, Cyberstein. Or if we want to do something else, because I feel like that set is another goat. And if it is another goat, then, well, I mean, it's not the worst if it's another goat, because maybe, yeah, I think maybe I misplayed this. I think maybe what I should have done is just bring out the Tribe, attack over the Sangan, try and attack directly with the Sidra as well, because if it is goat, then I just leave all 4 goat tokens on the field and just pass back to them. They can't go for a Stein play with the Sangan there. So maybe that was the correct play. But I don't know. I just pass back to them because I don't want to let them get the Stein Search. They set another pass back to us. We draw a Grizzly, which is okay. We are going to think about this again, and we will just attack into the set with the Dragon. It reveals that it's a Magician of Faith there, and they're going to get back the Snatch Steal, and that is really bad for us. We set a Grizzly to hopefully survive, but they've got a Raigeki break for our set. We're not going to chain the ring, and yeah, this is going to be pretty bad for us. It wasn't a goat. It was a break. So that still would have been able to stop our play there, unfortunately. And we would have lost there either way, I guess. But yeah, it's still good to know what we could have done differently. But yeah, they've got the knock as well that we didn't know about. Maybe I should have just left the Grizzly in attack. But yeah, it's just kind of awkward here. But that will be the end of the game there. And yeah, kind of rough stuff for us here, for sure. We weren't able to pull off the Croaking play online with the Death Frog. And that's always unfortunate, but this deck does take a lot to actually go well for it. Like, you need to basically get into 3 separate parts of the deck that are unsearchable in many ways, right? The Tadpole stuff is searchable, right? Tadpole, Grizzly, etc. That is searchable. You can get that out. You can pull that off if your opponent attacks into your stuff, right? But as we talked about with Tadpole, oftentimes it is a bit of a weakness because if you set it, your opponent knocks it potentially. If you leave it in attack, then your opponent OTKs through it. So the best way to deal with the Tadpole is bringing it off of a Grizzly and then switch it to defense on the following turn. And then your opponent kind of has to eat through it through an attacking. But they also know it's there. So if they do eat through it through attacking, then they're probably fine taking that risk. Also, Cyber End Dragon is a thing. So they can just bring a Cyber End Dragon and attack through it. And that is really bad for you. Also, again, you can't search out Death Frog. You can't search out Death Croaking. Those are 2 vital parts to making the combo online. And that makes it very, very tough to actually pull off the combo. Also, we didn't get to see the combo in these games, but I do want to point out that you're playing this combo in a format where the other sort of couple card combo just ends the game on the spot, right? If your opponent goes for a Stein play, and they've got like limit removal as a backup as well, then they're killing you that turn. Unless you've got things like Threatening Roar, etc. So people are playing things that stop that sort of thing, Threatening Roar, Wuboku, etc. And the play that you're setting up, it can only really OTK if you've already dealt some damage to your opponent. And 5,700 damage is a lot, so it's not necessarily the hardest thing to get them down to that threshold. But if they're playing Threatening Roar, etc., then you can't push through the OTK that turn. Also, they have follow-up. Cyber Dragon does beat over a Death Frog, so if they've got Cyber Dragon in hand, they just summon out Cyber Dragon, attack over Death Frog. You can't pull off the Croaking anymore, and you're also in a really tough spot because you can't deal with the Cyber Dragon. So I think that this deck is really, really cool. I'm really glad it got to pop off in the locals. Again, definitely check out that stream if you want to see Mildly Upset Gerbil pilot this deck very, very well. And again, shout outs to Mildly Upset Gerbil for actually making a playable Deathstroke deck. Like, I think this deck is really cool, and I am really happy that it was able to pop off in those games on the local stream. But I will say, if you were thinking about picking up this deck, you should know that it is probably like rogue at best, I would say, because other decks just sort of do the OTK strat a lot better than it does, and it doesn't actually kill, and it just is much too hard to actually pull off. So that's my verdict on the deck. Again, you know, I'm not saying the deck shouldn't be played. I think it should be played because it's very cool and very fun if you pull off the combo. But if you do want to play a more competitive OTK deck, this format does have a lot of other ones for you to pick. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. As always, if you enjoy this sort of gameplay content, definitely do subscribe to the channel. I'd really like to reach 1,400 or even 1,500 subscribers by the end of this month. And with your support, I know that we can do it. Also, if you want to support me directly, I have a Patreon, links in the description down below. And if you sign up for that, you'll get shout out in these videos. So big shout outs to Bren Donker, Pork Chop Coon, GMYFS, Dump Truck, Rincewind, and Tyler Compton. It really means a lot that you all support me this way, and it encourages me to make more videos like this. Let me know what you think of this deck and the duels down in the comments below. I look forward to discussing with y'all as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.